I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rafe Mair, former BC Cabinet Minister and Canada's longest-running #1 radio talk show host, and most importantly, the most prominent political commentator in Lions Bay, BC. Welcome to the show, Rafe.
I'm getting a lot of competition in Lions Bay these days, you know, Jim.
Well, who's the competition?
Oh, my gosh, you know, with the proposed pulp mill in Squamish, and everybody mad at Trudeau and everybody mad at the MP, I'm finding myself having a hard time scrabbling to get a place to talk.
Are people pleased that they want to reindustrialize Squamish?
Oh, they think it's a wonderful idea. They just wish they could get a hold of Trudeau, slit his throat, and drown his MP. No, people are very, very unhappy, very unhappy.
What are the biggest concerns?
Well, I think they're basically, there are several, you got to know the build up to this, I think, Jim. You know, how Sound got into terrible shape because of the Britannia mine and the wood fiber pulp mill and so on and so forth. And when they shut down, a lot of local people put a lot of time and money into cleaning it up. And we've now seen the herring return, the salmon return. These are, you know, right before our very eyes. And we see porpoise, we see the killer whales and other whales coming back. And, you know, from where I'm sitting right now, I can see these things happening. So people are pretty excited that that's all happened. Now along comes this wood fiber LNG proposal. And the first thing, of course, that bothers everybody is the methane gas going into the atmosphere. But I suppose more than that, they're worried about the discharges going into the ocean, which are just, I'm not an expert on this, but I am told it's really very, very bad indeed. We're going to lose our herring runs and our salmon and so forth. But there's a sleeper in this that people are now really coming to grips with or understand, and that's the large LNG tankers that would have to go up and down the Howe Sound. Now, you got to listen to this because this is important. Howe Sound is considered by international standards to be too narrow. The sound and the various passageways are too narrow to take these things. Now, if you just said, oh, well, hell, who cares about international laws? The very companies, the company's organization, SIGTO, that's their industrial organization. You know what I'm saying. They say that they shouldn't come in here. That's far too narrow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, the issue that's now coming to people now is, look, you know, if the company's own organization says that they're going to violate the rules, then we just can't have this. And, LNG tankers don't crash very often, but if they do crash, it's a hell of a mess. So people are pretty concerned about it. I think basically, it's the justification is there, Jim, for all of these things, and underlying that is the strong feeling that the people have never had a chance to talk to anybody about this. The provincial government has utterly ignored us. The MLA won't even come to meetings. The former Conservative government, John Weston, wouldn't come to meetings. All he would do was try to support this thing. We got a new MP, a Liberal, and we thought that she was going to do better. I didn't because I know what she was up against. But in any event, she's not been able to do anything better. So people are very, very frustrated. They're very, very angry. And this fight, I can assure you, Jim, is a long, long way from over.
Well, I'm sure the Trudeau government has not wiped out the legislation that was passed by the Harper government that allows the federal cabinet to overrule any environmental finding.
Well, I think that's what we're relying upon. We're surprised it got going in the first place. See, there are a lot of things about this, Jim, that are bad. They had an environmental assessment of this. It was kind of one of those combination federal-provincial things. It was fraudulent. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. I wouldn't use that word unless I was absolutely sure what I was saying. It was a sham. It sort of made a Soviet show trial look like a paragon of British virtue. I mean, it was just awful, and everybody knew that. Everybody knows that. So the only test that wood fiber LNG has been put to is no test at all. There's another joker in this deck, which is now starting to come out. We've known it for a long time. The guy that owns wood fiber LNG, a guy named Sukanta Tsunoda, is a crook. I might say that. I've said it on air, written about it, and so on. He's a crook. He cheats on his income tax. He got fined $200 million for one of his enterprises for cheating on his income tax. He's a jungle burner. When everything's getting his way, he's very aggressive with people, putting people and their cottages out of the way back in Indonesia. I mean, he's just known. I'm not just saying this. You can read this in the Guardian Weekly, for goodness sake. This is just common knowledge. And people are now saying to themselves, it's a little late, I guess, but what the hell are we doing bringing a guy like this into our community to do business? It just doesn't make any sense. And they're also saying with some justification, I thought that Christy Clark was going to do our due diligence for us. Why has she brought somebody like this into our community to do business? So all of these things have sort of added up. And, Jim, in politics and everything else, timing is everything. And these things are now just coming to the fore, and I think we're going to hear an awful lot about it. There will be, I assure you, civil disobedience if this goes through.
What about BC's so-called loyal opposition? I hear very little opposition from them.
Well, this has got to be one of the worst stories that I've ever heard in politics. As a matter of fact, I was just discussing with a very long-time NDPer, a guy whose family has been NDP since the beginning of time. If I told you who it was, you would know instantly all about him. And he said, don't get me going on LNG and the NDP. This is what happened, if people don't remember this. John Horgan decided way back, you can't be against everything, so we're going to be for LNG. Now, you think about that for a second. What do you mean you can't be against everything? You can certainly be against everything that's wrong. Does that mean that if something is wrong, you say it's right just in order to keep the statistics right? The second thing, though, and this is a very important thing that I think most people understand instinctively, Lord Randolph Churchill back in the 1880s said it is the duty of the opposition to oppose. Now, Horgan's going around saying, oh yeah, but that's old-time stuff. Nonsense. The reason for that is the only way the public can determine whether or not government policy is sound, is fair, et cetera, is if it's all brought out inch by inch by the opposition. And this is extremely important, particularly today when the issues are so complex. You can't just, say I'm in favor of something without really finding what it's all about. Now, the third string to this bow, and I'd imagine you've thought of this already, if you say, look, we're in favor of LNG, you're in favor of all of LNG. You're in favor of the fracking process, of the extraction process, of the transporting it to the mill, to the changing it over into LNG, the transporting it by transit, by tanker, etc. And you're also in favor, I presume, of Christy Clark's idiocies with all the countries around the world making deals. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You can't say, oh, well, I'm in favor of LNG, but I don't think I like the way they do this, that, or the other thing. You're either in favor or you're not. Well, now Horgan and the NDP, like it or not, are for it. That means when you come to a place like Howe Sound, which I think everybody listening knows is one of the beauty spots of British Columbia, you got a place like Howe Sound, that means, officially, the NDP think it's a great idea to spew stuff into the atmosphere, to pour gunk into the sound and kill all of the fish, send tankers up and down that are dangerous as hell, but in waters that are too narrow. The NDP obviously approved that. Now, it leads to ridiculous situations. We've been opposing it as citizens here for a number of years. We had a protest last May. Now, we asked the NDP to send somebody to speak to it. They're the opposition. Why wouldn't they speak to it? They wouldn't send anybody. No, in my day in politics, if there was a protest and you asked the NDP to come, you'd have to have a police force out there to keep them all from coming, and now you can't get one. because they're now in favor of it. So we've now got probably the major issue in the next election coming up, or one of the major issues, certainly, where the NDP are on the same side as the government. They can't even ask Christie and what's his name, Gumshoe, I call him, a question about the negotiations they're having with Singapore and with Indonesia and that sort of thing. They can't even get into that because they've approved it. So where's the NDP? The NDP is in bed with the Liberals.
Is natural gas a better deal than China burning coal?
No, it's not. This is now been scientifically discovered and written about, and I can send you stuff on it if you want, and anybody's stuff on it. It was originally thought that natural gas was the least harmful of the fossil fuels. If natural gas is LNG, which most of it is now, because that's the easiest way to transport it, it is the worst of the three, the worst of coal, oil, and gas. So it's number 3. It's the absolute worst. So Christie doesn't know this. She's going around still telling everybody, oh, it's a clean effort. It's not. Natural gas right under the ground, okay. Natural gas that's LNG, no, sir. You take that from the extraction process to into the atmosphere, it is considerably worse than anything else. So it's got nothing going for it except Christie's mind. It's sad to see, and we in Howe Sound, I could tell you we're just not going to put up with it. This is such a beautiful place, and I don't want to sound noble, but we feel like we're saving this for all of British Columbia. We're keeping Howe Sound, this beautiful fjord, right around the corner from Vancouver, and 2.5 million people. We're keeping this clean and beautiful and there for boaters and so on and so forth, and keeping it away from these guys. They're going to come along and ruin it. And it's what I say, it's a very serious situation to the people here. I've never seen in a long life a community that is so up in arms as this one.
Well, a lot of people aren't aware of what the word Squamish means, the town that's at the head of Howe Sound.
Well, Squamish is right up at the top of Howe Sound. It's a lovely spot. It's become very fashionable now for people even in Vancouver to live there. It was established originally as a pulp mill, the old wood fiber pulp mill. I don't know whether that was the original one, but it's certainly one of the early ones. I remember it as a kid. And it was there for a long, long time. There was no traffic there until probably the late 50s or 60s, before there was a road through there. It was all by Union Steamship. And, it's a very old town. It's got a very large First Nations population and so on. And eventually it became uneconomical to keep the pulp mill going and to keep the mine going, which was the biggest mine in the British Commonwealth, biggest copper mine in the British Commonwealth. And they went. And as I say, that was the sign for people that lived here to say, look, we got a golden opportunity. Let's clean this up. Let's bring it back the way it used to be. And they did. So now it's changed. It's not like it was 40 or 50 years ago. It's now clean again, beautifully clean. And God, people just aren't prepared to see that go.
Well, Rafe, the word Squamish, nothing to do with Native American women. It has to do with the strong winds. It means strong wind or strong constant wind. And that's why Howe Sound is great for windboarders and windsurfers, but horrible for super tankers.
Oh, and I don't pretend to know all of this part, Joe, but I'm told by the experts that even the turn they take is they're going the wrong way. They're going against centrifugal force, making it even easier to go in and hit something. There is nothing right about this. There really isn't. The market is terrible. The people that are coming in to ruin it are crooks. The Howe Sound is not the place to do it. You're right about the winds. The channels in and out of Howe Sound are very, very narrow. The only traffic it has of consequence are very large ferries who don't get out of the way nearly as quickly as some people think they do. You've got that involved with large tankers. We only discovered in the last 4 or 5 years the fantastic sea life that we have, the sponges. What do they call them? Glass sponges. We just got an abundance here, and what we ruined in the last few years, we've brought back, and the divers are here again. It's just a crying shame to think that anybody would want to muck this up, and it's there we are. The people are recognize what they have here. This isn't a NIMBY issue, not in my backyard, that kind of thing. there's NIMBYism, I guess, in anything like that. Nobody wants to have their neighborhood spoiled by something, but this is that's minimal. That's far greater problems than that here. And the people that are opposed are not just people that live in Lions Bay, etc. People all over the lower mainland of British Columbia are coming to realize that house sound is something special, and you just can't give this up to a crook from Indonesia to ruin, and that's all there is to it.
We'll have more with Rafe Mair right after the break.
Unbelievable harmony, spectacular performance, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel. Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band coming to Mission, White Rock, West Vancouver. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rafe Mair. Rafe, when you were in government, I know you probably took great pride trying to balance the books and try not to overspend, because it's pretty easy to let loose a few billion here and there. What about the Trudeau government's plan to run $30 billion deficits for the next 5 years?
Well, I've never pretended to be any kind of a financial genius, Jim, and big figures always kind of, wow me. I understand the Keynesian theories and so on, that you have to, in bad times and people need to go to work, you got to spend money and then put it back during the good times. I'm never quite sure how big a deficit that's supposed to be. My suspicion is that Trudeau is probably right to be running some deficits. I'm suspicious that he's not running far too large deficits, and they'll never get paid back. This is the problem, as I've watched over the years, Jim. They will run up deficits during the times they have to help people out, and they're going to pay them back when times get good, but they forget that when time gets good. They don't. They put in more bridges, buildings, and so on, and they never get rid of the deficits. And this is what worries the hell out of me with the Trudeau government. Liberals in the past have not been known for being terribly good at balancing budgets or recovering from unbalanced budgets, and I worry about the Liberals.
Well, we did see Canada reverse the debt clock under Paul Martin as finance minister, but Canadians sure didn't like him as prime minister.
Well, and right, and he was a Liberal. There's only one thing that I would mention about Paul Martin doing that. He did it on the backs of the provinces, of health care and of the various transfers that the provinces are entitled to, either under the Constitution or various agreements. He didn't do it just by magic. He did it by taking the money away from somebody else. But saying that, give him credit. At least he tackled the problem, and he did get the country back into reasonable shape.
I know you're a professional politics watcher. What's your take on Donald Trump, especially his latest comments about giving nukes to Japan and South Korea and making women pay some kind of penalty if they have an abortion? Well,
I got a letter from an old pal of mine, used to be a deputy of mine out here, and he wrote about this business, the abortions, and I wrote him back tongue in cheek, and I said, what Trump really ought to do is put armed guards outside abortion clinics, and when women come along, strip them and whip them, and you'll punish them, and you'll probably cause an abortion at the same time, so you'll serve God and you'll serve the people. It's just so bad. I'm expecting this idiot to come out and say something like that. This is really a one-off. I hate myself when I say this, Jim, but in my life, I have never, ever seen anything like this. I've seen some weird ones, but I have never seen anything like this. And it really makes you wonder what's happened in the United States of America that somebody can get that much support. I tend to think now that they're coming to their senses and people want to do something about them, but it may be too late to do something about them. And, I'm not terribly fussy about Mrs. Clinton, and you're going to have the choice of Trump or Clinton. And it's the free world depends upon having sanity in the White House. And this guy, Trump, is really something. I mean, I just can't believe what I read. I keep thinking it must be some kind of a joke, but it isn't. It's serious.
Hillary seems to think that she is the anointed one. She really has that attitude. And
her opponent's giving her a hell of a rough time right now, and he's becoming quite popular. Wisconsin tomorrow it is right now anyway, may not be when this is broadcast, but Wisconsin is going to be a very interesting test, and to see whether Bernie might just carry on and do something a little more. You're right. Now, I think she's been at a disadvantage. She was a front runner at the start, and nobody really came out until Bernie did. So she just, has been at it too damn long, and there's nothing fresh or new about what she's saying. It's the same old stuff. But she hasn't got an absolutely lily-white record either. I'm not just thinking about the emails. That is bad enough and pretty stupid. But she didn't have a particularly great record when it came to dealing with the Middle East, which is the big thing that the United States always has to deal with. I happen to think that Obama has done reasonably well on there, and I invite people to take a look at this month's Atlantic magazine. They've got a full feature on that, and it's very interesting to read what he has done, what he's tried to do, etc. But even that, there have been a lot of failures in the Middle East, and I don't know that Hillary knows enough about it or cares enough about it to go in there and look after it, but she may be the only choice. And this is the trouble when you have a system like they have in the United States. You've only got the two choices, and whoever gets in, it's not very easy to get rid of them. It's hard in a parliamentary system, but it's damn near impossible in the U.S. system. There's only been one successful impeachment, and that was Nixon. And it's a worrying thing to think that Trump could get in there and be almost impossible to dislodge, or Hillary could get in there, do her very best, and not be good enough. So it's not a very cheery time to be watching American politics.
Trump keeps declaring, "I'm very, very smart."
Okay, well,
what do you think of people who declare themselves smart?
Well, if you declare yourself smart, if you are smart, you don't have to do that. I mean, everybody knows you're smart. I take that as being a bit of an inferiority complex there, that he's got to tell everybody he's smart because he's not quite so sure of himself. But in any event, Jim, to try and analyze this guy is impossible. There's something new and goofy and silly every day. And I think it's a mug's game to try and figure out what Trump's going to do or isn't going to do. I don't think he knows. It's a day by day, minute by minute, off the top of the head thing. And I've never seen anybody like that you had to deal with in American politics or others. Usually, you have some fair idea where they were coming from. You may not like it, but you have a fair idea of where they were. But with Trump, you just have no idea whatsoever. It's a very scary thing.
Well, I saw he was called into National Republican headquarters after his abortion comment. I wonder what they told him, because he won't say.
Well, they could have told him a lot of things. And I would imagine that they told him, look, if you don't clean your act up, we're going to do something to keep you from being the nominee. And I rather expect that Trump said, well, go do your best to keep me out. I'm going to go in there with enough votes that you're not going to be able to do it. You see, usually a candidate for either the Republicans or the Democrats doesn't want to ruin the party by getting the nomination. Now, he's not going to let anybody scare him or her easily, but he's not going to want to see the whole thing smashed. Trump could go in there and he could wind up with the Republican Party just a debacle, just nothing left. It's that bad. And I imagine the Republican Party tried very hard to convince him of that. And I imagine that despite what Trump said afterwards, he probably told him to go to hell. I'm going to get the nomination. If you don't like it, you're going to lump it. Pretty scary.
African Americans don't like him. Women don't like him. Latinos don't like him. We've been told that Donald Trump is basically the white man's party.
Well, I don't think he can win the presidency. I'm scared to say that, but I don't think he can, for the reasons that you've just expressed. The blacks and Latinos, particularly more and more as time goes on, and women, don't just dislike him. They dislike him by very substantial majorities. And I think that's going to be very, very tough. And he doesn't wear well either. You know, in the beginning, he's kind of fun. He's sort of like a cheerleader at a football game. You kind of get excited by all they say, but you know, when the score gets 45-0, the cheerleader doesn't really look very exciting anymore. And I think this is happening to Trump. The bloom is coming off. People aren't having nearly as much fun. They're starting to think. And that's the one good thing, I guess, about the American nomination process. It goes on long enough that the public does have a chance to think about it. But that's the only hope we really have, is that the public comes to its senses. And I think it probably, I hope it will anyway. I think it will.
Well, Trump keeps bragging about his business successes. He doesn't like to mention how many of his businesses and ventures have failed.
Well, you know, I would like to have started out my life with about $5 million back in the days when that was about $20 million and see how I could do in business. But you're right, he doesn't mention his failures at all. You know, this is the funny thing for me. I easily remember the days when if somebody was divorced, my God, that was the kiss of death. You couldn't become the president. Adlai Stevens hadn't had that problem back in the 50s, and others have had it since. And now I agree fully that people who are divorced should have the opportunity. I've been divorced a couple of times myself. But to think that that's the way it once was, now this guy has got an unbelievable record with women married to him or otherwise. Nobody mentions it. I mean, his morality is not an issue. So it's a different time, and he certainly is taking advantage of the fact that it is apparently an utterly undisciplined time.
Well, somebody said American politics has always been dirty, but I don't recall any presidential campaign in history where somebody's penis size mattered.
Oh, no, or somebody else's wife. I mean, these things are just, they're simply not done. I mean, you know, you want to be the president of the United States. It's the biggest job in the world, and it's a job that others have carried with great dignity. I mean, can you imagine a man like Trump sleeping in Lincoln's bedroom? I mean, the whole thing is just completely preposterous when you think about it. And that, getting back to your original question, Jim, is why it makes it so difficult to assess the man. You've never seen anything like this before. You've never seen anything close to this before. You know, you've seen people that have been a bit of a clown or whatever it may be, but I have never seen anything anywhere near this before in my life, and I can only hope the American people come to their senses. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who runs for president should be dressed to the nines, either walking right out of a ladies' fashion shop or wearing a three-piece suit all the time. I mean, perhaps we were a little too dignified in the years gone by. But my God, you have to have a little dignity. You have to be a decent human being, and you have to think like a decent human being. You know, if a person can be opposed to abortion, I mean, that's a legitimate position to take. Not very popular these days, but legitimate. But you can't be opposed like that women will be punished, for God's sake, or that you'll change the law so they can't have them. That just simply is not on. And so, you know, it's a very, very scary proposition.
Rafe, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
My pleasure as always, Jim.
My guest has been Rafe Mair, BC's longest-running #1 radio talk show host. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments or questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.